You know, I think it might be time for us to start preparing ourselves for some serious extraterrestrial disclosure. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean. Welcome to my channel where I give you the knowledge you need to spiritually awaken and ascend with clarity and confidence. So I'm getting this feeling that something a little strange is going on behind the scenes related to extraterrestrial disclosure. So we might want to start preparing ourselves for 2021 to get even a little bit crazier. Now, a couple of things have recently caught my attention related to this topic. Now, as you may know, in June of this year, the Pentagon is required to send to the Senate Intelligence Committee a full detailed report of everything they know about UFOs or UAPs. I think that's what they call it now, which stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. It's the same thing. I think they just changed the name. Now, when I heard about that at first, I thought, oh, well, it'll probably just be their usual cover-up. They'll say, well, we got the report, but it's classified, so we can't share it with the public. And so I kind of just dismissed it. But then recently, there have been a couple of things that have caught my attention in the media, which makes me think that maybe they are going to say something else. And it's not just about them disclosing, what's already happened, but I just have this funny feeling that there's something else going on with the subject of extraterrestrials that is going to surprise us. Now, the first thing I thought that was a little bit strange is I happened to stumble across a news article that had a video of Marco Rubio, who is a U.S. Senator. I think he's on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He was being interviewed by TMZ, of all things, and he was being asked about this report. And what he said was very interesting. He said, there are these things flying over our U.S. military installations. We don't know what they are, and we don't know who they are, but they're not us. So anyway, the reporter was asking him something like, well, are they extraterrestrial? Are they not from here? And Marco Rubio said something like, well, you don't really want to talk about that because you get stigmatized. Now, remember that word stigmatized. But see, the thing is, he would not deny that they could be extraterrestrial, or that maybe he knows for a fact that they're extraterrestrial. Probably he does, would be my guess. But anyway, he made that same statement several times because the guy would ask him a question he didn't really want to answer directly, so he would just keep repeating, well, they're flying over our military installations. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they are, but they're not us. And he did say this one interesting thing. He said, well, if they are ETs, and this is not an exact quote, but he said, well, if they are, they're more advanced than we are because they can get here, but we can't get there. Kind of simplistic, right? So anyway, the reporter finally insisted, well, what if they are aliens? And Marco Rubio kind of laughed and said, boy, that would really top off 2021. So what struck me is that he did not deny that they could be extraterrestrial. So I'm thinking, that's kind of interesting because I don't think it was an accident that this interview happened. I don't think it was an accident that it was put out in this way. So it got me a little bit curious, like what's going on that he would actually come so close to almost admitting, well, he did admit that they could be extraterrestrial. He just didn't admit it directly. And then the second thing that caught my attention was this. I was watching a recent video of Linda Moulton Howe on her Earth Files YouTube channel, and she brought up the topic of a show with Tucker Carlson interviewing Christopher Mellon, who was a former Assistant Deputy Secretary of Defense. Tucker Carlson was asking this guy about this report that's supposed to go to the Senate. So she had actually written a short transcript of the significant parts of that interview, and I copied it and wrote it down because I want to read to you what the guy said because I think it's pretty significant. So anyway, Tucker Carlson asked him, what do you think we're going to learn? And Christopher Mellon said, I think it could be profound and transformative. Well, that's not like saying, oh, it's classified, we're not going to tell you, right? So then the other thing she had that I thought was very significant is Tucker Carlson said, Why haven't we heard this before? It could change our perception of our place in the universe. That's interesting, right? Then he answered, it's largely been a matter of stigma. So, guys, there's that word again, stigma. I'm wondering if they're going to tell us there really are extraterrestrials, and when they get confronted like, well, why haven't you told us this? Maybe that's going to be their out. Maybe they're going to say, oh, well, it's all because of being stigmatized. So I notice in the media when they all start using the same languaging, it means usually there's like a plan. So anyway, he says, it's largely been a matter of stigma and people are afraid to discuss it. It's shocking. And then he said, I think it's going to raise a lot of questions and shock waves. So there's a lot on the plate, and I think it's going to be a big deal. So I found these two separate incidents very interesting because these are prominent government officials making these statements publicly in the media, and it started to make me wonder, are they getting ready to prepare the public for something very unexpected? So I believe in being proactive because they have shocked us with so much weirdness over a year, well, what's now almost a year and a half. I think we probably want to be a little proactive and start paying attention to certain clues in case they're planning to lay another big weird thing on all of us again. So this could mean a number of things. So let's just take a look at what some of those possibilities are. Let's look at where we are right now and brainstorm a couple of possibilities. I don't know if you guys can feel this, but it feels to me like there are some changes in the air. There's something going on that is not really seen on the surface, but I feel like there's something kind of big that's changing. Maybe for the better, I'm not really sure. So where we are right now is I think the controllers might be struggling in their attempts to gain total control over us using this health issue. I kind of have a feeling that things are not going as smoothly as they had hoped. Now, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily losing, but it may be that it's proving to be a lot more difficult than they had ever imagined. Now, you might have heard about something called Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam is supposedly a secret government program to have a fake alien invasion designed to produce maximum fear and finalize their plan to control us all. Now, I've always thought, well, maybe this is something they're going to pull out if their original plan is failing. So that's one possibility. But I think if that happens, it could be relatively easy to see through that because, these guys are pretty predictable. For example, if they try this fake alien invasion scenario and it leaves them fully in charge of everything just like before, then I think that could be cause for suspicion that maybe the whole thing is fake. So that's one possibility, but intuitively, I don't get the sense that that's what it is, although I guess it still remains to be seen. So let's look at another possibility. It's also possible that there are actual extraterrestrials involved with this who are literally forcing them to disclose their existence on this planet. I mean, I guess it's possible that the ETs could want disclosure and they're forcing the government to do it. They could be having negotiations like maybe the government doesn't want to do it. Maybe the ETs want to do it. And maybe they're saying, okay, let's just kind of collaborate on terms of how we're going to make this unfold. That's another possibility. I mean, the ETs could have said, well, either you reveal our presence here or we're going to do it for you. Then the question would be, are these good extraterrestrials? Are they benevolent or are they malevolent extraterrestrials? Are they negative ETs? And if this is the case, would these be extraterrestrials that the governments have been working with all along? If this would possibly be extraterrestrials who've been working with the governments all this time, then I think we're talking about a very questionable presence based on how we've all been treated. Now, there is a third possibility that could also be in the works. There could actually be an extraterrestrial threat that the government feels completely unprepared for. See, the thing is, we don't really know what is actually going on out in space because we are kept in the dark about everything. There could be good ETs that are trying to help us. There could be negative ETs that are trying to do who knows what, maybe even destroy us. There could be a lot going on that we don't see from our position on the surface of this planet. But overall, it would really not surprise me to see extraterrestrials enter the picture openly at some point in time, not too far off, based on the crazy things that have already been happening on this planet. Now, another interesting thing, back in 2016, when we were still living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and in Santa Fe, you feel very close to the sky. I mean, you can see the edge of the galaxy if it's a moonless night. And I was very aware that there was a war in space. I could feel it. There was like a war going on above us, and good extraterrestrials versus bad extraterrestrials fighting over something related to our planet. I've mentioned recently that I feel that the energy has lightened up a lot recently. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I don't know if that's just a temporary thing based on astrology or something like that, but or if there actually is a war in space, that maybe something positive is happening and something's lightening up or something's changing. I don't really know, but I just have a very strong feeling that it's certainly not going to hurt for us to start preparing ourselves for the possibility of extraterrestrials entering our sphere of reality in ways that we can see and become conscious of. So let's talk about just a few ways that we can begin to prepare ourselves psychologically, mentally, and emotionally for such a possibility. I think the first thing we need to do is to stop this mindset that we are victims. Because if we continue positioning ourselves as victims, we're just going to be easily victimized, right? So we have to leave that paradigm. We have to just say no more. We're not going to be victims anymore. That's not who we really are. And secondly, I think it's important that we recognize that we are galactic citizens too. We're not slaves. We've been brainwashed to believe that, we're just slaves, and we're just not allowed to know anything or see anything because we're at such a low rung on the galactic ladder, perhaps. We just have to say, no, that's not true. We're not slaves. We are citizens of this galaxy and demand from within ourselves, not in an aggressive way, but just in a place of presence. Just say, we are citizens of this galaxy. That's who we are. In other words, we need to take a stand in that presence in our galaxy. That is who we are. We're not slaves. We reject that completely. And we are citizens. We want to re-enter the galaxy. We want to re-enter the galactic community of life because that's who we are. And that is really the truth of where we actually belong on this planet. Then, if you want to rejoin the galaxy, if you want to become a part of the galactic community of life, then you have to start thinking like a galactic citizen. You can't be thinking anymore like you're just this Earth-based victimized slave. Do you see how those are totally different mindsets? That's just a major paradigm shift. And this is why we have to learn to think for ourselves. Because see, if we don't think for ourselves, what's going to happen is we're going to look around, we're going to say, well, gosh, no one else is thinking that they're a galactic citizen. How do I know I really am? See, we can't do that anymore because it doesn't help. It doesn't do us any good. So that's the first step, is to just come back into your own, come back into who you really are and say, I am a citizen of this galaxy. And, you do have certain rights in that position, right? After you've kind of contemplated that for a while, the next thing you want to do is remember that I think there are certain laws about vibrational frequencies in this universe. See, everything vibrates and it actually emits sound. And that doesn't necessarily mean sound that can be heard, but it's sort of a fundamental principle in this universe that everything emits a sound and can be known by that harmonic quality of its vibration or its frequency level. Now, some frequencies are compatible with each other and others are not. This is also very important to really hone your ability to read energy, because if we do find ourselves in the company of extraterrestrials, we better learn to read energy so we know the nature of those extraterrestrials. Are they benevolent or are they not? So let's think for a moment, what is the frequency of humanity on this planet right now? What is their vibrational level on a collective basis? Collectively, humanity on this planet is kind of vibrating at a very low level of fear and terror and war and death and violence and anger and all that kind of stuff. It's basically the frequency of slavery and control. I want to suggest that you take a moment to consider more advanced civilizations in this universe, even in our local galactic neighborhood. And there are many, many, many civilizations that exist at a much higher frequency level with things like order and peace and a natural sense of cooperation with each other. And they also certainly have way more advanced technologies than we do. See, on our planet, most of the technology is for purposes of slavery and for war. So it's really mostly destructive. Whereas more advanced civilizations who have evolved beyond this level of negativity, they have much higher levels of technology that are life-giving and life-enhancing and really in beautiful harmony with the natural universe and whatever natural world they are living on. So if you look at those two situations, our current harmonic frequency would not really integrate with their frequency levels at all. So I'm going to suggest a few things because I just want to help you start to think differently about how we look at the situation on our planet. In other words, it would be really helpful for us to start thinking like an extraterrestrial, because that's actually what we are. I mean, if we go to another planet, we're an extraterrestrial too, right? Now, I know there are a lot of people who wonder, well, how come the good ETs don't just come down here? They have all this technology. Why don't they just land here, get rid of the bad guys, and make all this stuff go away? So let's think for a moment in a very realistic way why possibly they're not doing that, why they don't just land here and fix it all. Because see, the first thing that would happen is they would be faced with nearly, 7 or 8 billion human beings who would probably be completely traumatized and in a state of total terror, as the good ETs attempted to remove the deeply embedded structures of evil that have been controlling this planet for thousands of years. And that includes the money system. Now, think for just a moment about what that would look like on a realistic basis. Not the Hollywood version, not the movie version. Let's actually get very real about what that would look like. See, if that would happen, a lot of people would probably be killed in the open warfare that would erupt as the good ETs attempted to purge this planet of the bad guys. Because, those bad guys are literally embedded everywhere. A lot of people would probably go into an extreme level of shock. There would be terror, there'd be mass confusion, mass hysteria all over the place. And then what would be happening to the global infrastructure of things like energy, food, water, and transportation in the process of all this going on? How would the supply chains continue to function in the middle of all of this? You could be talking about absolute pandemonium and a lot more death as a result. And then what would you do about all of these billions of people during and after this entire endeavor? Someone would have to get all these people under control because you'd be talking about the governments collapsing. Everything would collapse. Civilization would completely collapse. And it would be a very serious situation. And then you would have literally billions of people who would need an extreme level of deprogramming and healing from this mass trauma. And then a completely new life-sustaining infrastructure would have to be built. What would that transition look like? And then after all that, you guys, you'd still be left with a planet full of people who haven't evolved. Instead, they would be in a state of having been terrorized and completely traumatized. On an evolutionary level, they could almost end up in worse shape than they're in right now. So anyway, this is why I think the benevolent ETs don't just dive in here and fix everything for us, because it could actually destabilize things further and make things even worse. Now, it is possible that these benevolent extraterrestrials are working on the outside in ways that we don't see. It's possible that they could be doing things, trying to get things to ease up a bit so that we have a little more breathing room to try and evolve and ascend and go forward. But see, they've got to keep a balance between whatever activities they might initiate here and our ability to evolve. It's a very delicate, very serious and necessarily strategic situation. See, I think the preference has always been for us to evolve to a higher level of consciousness. So we are capable of interacting with higher intelligences in a practical, conscious, more appropriate way. This is why I keep saying we have got to be able to function as co-creative partners if we really want to get the help that we need on a purely practical level. Now, we are clearly at a major transition point on this planet right now. So I really don't know what this sudden government disclosure thing is really going to be about. But I do think we should be prepared for anything, and I think we should do so proactively. Let's not wait for them to just spring something on us by surprise. Now, one thing we could do that I think would help us a lot is if we get out of the habit of always referencing the past for literally everything. We don't want to always use our past memories to assess the validity of something new. Because what that does is it just turns into an endless loop of always seeing things in the same exact way. And it can keep us very stuck in our consciousness. So we need to expand our consciousness and break out of that loop. We need to accept that we don't know everything. And this is why it's so important that we find our inner strength so we are able to enter unknown territory with wisdom and with a high level of intuition. So right now, I think it's very important to make an extra effort to stay centered, to stay grounded, and to keep raising our vibration. These are some ways that we can start to prepare ourselves for the possibility of mass ET disclosure. See, there's always a possibility that we may only have a short window here to get ourselves together on a physical, mental, and emotional level. Now, it is possible that this June disclosure could just kind of fizzle out and end up being just another secretive, classified situation. But I don't want to count on that because of the way they seem to be opening the door and hinting at something more as we get closer and closer to that June date. So I hope you found this video interesting. I hope it gave you some good food for thought. And if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would benefit from this information. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and positive energy. And I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.